going to talk about my March wrap up. And I read 12 books. 7 of them were audiobooks. One book took me 2 weeks, but we're not complaining. We'll talk about that. And I was really sad when it ended. And most of them were 4 or 5 stars. One was 6-star, and I had one 3-star. So let's get into this and let's talk about it, okay? I have my computer over here with my notes. So if you see me looking this way, that's why. Although at this point I should have it memorized. Okay, my first book of the month was Turn Into Tables by Teresa Giudice, or Giudice, however you want to pronounce it. So this book is about Teresa Giudice, who is on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. And about 5 or 6 years ago, she went to jail for mortgage and tax fraud. Okay? Now, I remember watching this show, and I've rewatched it recently. And one of the things that I always thought was this was a case of her being very naive. And I know that ignorance is no excuse to the law. And I truly believe she did not do this crime willingly or knowingly. I truly believe with all my heart that she signed papers and was listening to her husband, and he took a gamble, and unfortunately a lot of people lost. So that's my opinion on that. This story told about her time her time in prison. Okay, she spent 11 months in prison. I will say I learned a lot about prison from this book. I have never read anything about prison, I've seen stuff, but I've never really read anything about somebody's real experience in prison. So this was very eye-opening as far as that was concerned. I learned how things work, and it was just very interesting to learn that. I gave it 4 stars. It told a lot about her life before and everything, and I just don't think it's a 5-star in my opinion, but it's definitely a 4-star. So there we go. So the next book that I read was Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham, Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls. I really enjoyed this audiobook. Okay, I enjoyed it so much. It was read by her, and she, when you watch a show, you often wonder, do the characters get along as well as they portray themselves in the show? And I was concerned about this because there are shows that I really like, and I found out their characters the cast members didn't get along, and that actually was kind of sad to me, but that was not the case for this. They all get along. They had a wonderful time making this show. This is one of my comfort shows. So it was really cool to find out that this was her favorite character that she's ever played, and how much she enjoyed it and had a good time doing it, and loved doing the follow-up, The Year in the Life, the sequel to it, and it was really good. And to hear her perspective on things and everything, and she talked a lot about her life. And at one point, she even calls her dad during recording the audiobook. So that was really funny. She is not exactly Lorelai, but there are some mannerisms, obviously, that kind of translate over. And it was just really cool to read that. And I also gave that 4 stars. Okay. The next book that I read was The Princess Bride. Now, I was again concerned that this was not going to hold up, and that has not been the case. This was even with the movie. Okay, they did both very well, but I also wanted to read their synopsis of this, okay, because I don't feel like I can give it. The way this is written is so poetic, and I just think this is the best way for me to explain what the story is about in case you've never heard of it. What happens when the most beautiful girl in the world marries the handsome of all time and turns out to be, well, a lot less of the man of her dreams, right? As a boy, William Goldman claims he'd love to hear his father tell the S. Morgenstein classic Princess Bride. But as a grown-up, he discovered the boring parts of the book were left out by old Dad, and only the good parts were what reached his ears. Now, Goldman does one better, okay? And he reconstructed a good parts version to delight kids and wide-eyed grown-ups everywhere. What is it about? It's about fencing, fighting, true love, strong hate, harsh revenge, a few giants, a lot of bad men, lots of good men, 5 or 6 beautiful women, bestious, monstrous, and gentle, some swell escapes and captures, death, lies, truth, little sex, and in short, it's about everything. I highly recommend this book, and I recommend it not only reading it, I will be reading it, but listening to it on audiobook. 10 out of 10 recommend. It was so good. I love the narrator's voice, and I really, really enjoyed this. I cannot say enough about this book and how good it is, and how this was right there. Like, these were equal. These were together. They were right there. The movie and the book, perfect. Okay, and I gave it 5 stars, obviously. The next book that I listened to was called The Woman in the Window by A.J. Flynn. In some ways, I was not shocked by the twist. I saw some of them coming, but others I did not. And I was about 75% through with this book, I'm going to be honest with you, and I thought I had it all figured out, which I think that happens in a lot of thrillers, and I think if good thriller writer, they want you to believe that, right? They want you to believe that you got it figured out because that's what makes it a twist, right? But this was, so I was really happy with it. So in the end, I was really excited for how it turned out, and I was really cheering on the FMC. Anna Fox lives by herself. She suffers from agoraphobia due to from a tragic accident that she was in, like an anxiety disorder because of that, as a result of that accident. And she spends her time watching people watching. And one day she gets a little too involved with a family on her street. And this is it, you have to see her have to fight her anxiety to survive. And I love how the conclusion was very realistic. And I recommend this book, and I give it 5 stars. I loved it. It was really good. I started watching the movie on Netflix. Netflix did a movie of this, movie adaptation, and I've decided to stop watching it. And I'm going to watch it with my husband. We decided we're gonna watch it this weekend. We have time, so that's what I'm looking forward to. So, but I really, really enjoyed that. So it was a good book. The next book that I listened to, I had a hard copy of it, but I decided to listen to it because I knew that I would have more time to listen, because I knew one book was very long. It was going to take me a long time. So I thought, well, I have the opportunity to listen to this, so I will. And that is Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I am learning to enjoy her writing style. It is different from what modern life, it's older, so being a classic, and I'm learning the different things about that and what comes with that, because it's like a different time and different things. So this is actually number 10 in the series. I didn't realize that when I started it, but whatever. So I like the descriptions of the characters, and I'm really glad I listened to this on audiobook, because I think I would have had a hard time because there was a lot of characters in this book. And so I think I might have had a hard time keeping up, but so that's one of the things I love. So just after midnight, and a snowdrift on the famous Orient Express comes to a stop because of the snow in the Baltic Mountains. Okay, Balkan Mountains. And this luxurious train is full of passengers for that time of year, which is strange, except they wake up and one less is alive. And he is found in his compartment, and he has been murdered, and the door is locked from the inside. So they've got to figure out basically who did it. So as it turns out, one of the passengers is Hercule Poirot, who is on vacation, and he is a detective, and this is what he does. So he gets to find out before this killer strikes again who the killer is. And it was a wild ride, and I really enjoyed it. And I gave it 4 stars, and I look forward to reading more of her books. And I hope, because I read them out of order, I didn't ruin anything. I don't think so, but it's okay. I'll survive. Now, my next book. This is my 6 star. I can't tell you. I actually, when I got done with this, went on my TikTok and said, this is what a 6 star looks like. It was long. It did take me almost 2 weeks to read it, but that's okay. I loved it. It was worth it. I could not believe how much I enjoyed it, because it is a Western, but I still, I remember watching the miniseries as a child. The miniseries came out in 1989, and I remember in the 90s watching it as a teenager, and I loved the miniseries, and so I didn't know if I was going to like the book. And I gotta say, again, just like Princess Bride, they did a really good adaptation of the miniseries. Obviously, the book always gives more backstory on some of the characters, which helps you to understand them. But either way, 10 out of 10, recommend. The story is about Augustus McCrae and Woodrow Crawl, and they were actually based on 2 real Texas Rangers back in the 1800s, and they are lifelong friends. They've been friends forever, and they kind of play off of each other really well. You have Augustus, Gus, who is, you're wise and, fun, and you have your more serious Woodrow Crawl, so they really a great pair together. And they decide to take a cattle herd from Texas, Lonesome Dove, Texas, up to Yellowstone, Montana. And it's a journey that is not boring at all. And it was just so good. I can't even put into words how much I enjoyed this. This storytelling is magnificent. It will keep you going. Like I said, there is a lot of back history, so that really, I like that. I like knowing why somebody is the way they are, why this is the situation it is, and so I really enjoyed that. The great character development, you could picture everything. It was just really good. Great writing, loved it, cannot recommend more highly. So then when I got done with it, I wasn't done. I was ready for more. I wasn't ready to leave. I wanted to stay. Oh my gosh, I ugly cried. Oh, it was so good. It was heartbreaking. But yeah, so much that I actually found on Roku the miniseries, and I started watching that, and I watched that. So yes, I highly, highly recommend that. And like I said, not even 5 stars. I give it 6 stars. I actually listened to an audio, was graphic audio, and it's a reread for me, was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Ross. I started this actually in January. It's in 2 parts on Libby, and I started it in January, and then I put it on hold for the second part, and it came in. So you know how it is, when the iron's hot, you gotta strike, and so I watched it. In case you don't know, this story focuses on Violet, and she is training to be a dragon rider. She wanted to be a scribe like her father, but being a Sorrengail requires something else of her. And so going on this journey is in her POV, and it is a front row seat of the struggle of her figuring out clever ways to not only survive, but she surpasses everybody's expectations of her. Yes, it's an enemies to lovers, a love triangle, and finding out who she is. The twist at the end is what made me want to go back for more. Honestly, when I was listening to this, I was like, this is a 4-star. Why do I ever think it was a 5-star now that I've read more fantasy? But the ending was like, oh yeah, that's why. That's why. So, totally recommend that. It was really good. So, the next book that I listened to was Not That Fancy by Reba McEntire. I gave this 5 stars because I really enjoyed the way this book was written. Um, I was really surprised because who Reba is who she is. You kind of wonder sometimes if these people are as good as they pretend to be or that they are. But this book was a proof that she is who she is. And so many of her mannerisms from Reba and her new shows and her movies and everything come out in this. And I learned a lot of history about her life and then her music and her career, her acting career, and how she got started in that. And it has a lot of wisdom in it. And you also got to hear from people in her that she's worked with and her family and her friends. And she gave practical advice in this book, and she gave solutions and suggestions to things. And this book had different interviews, like I said, from different people in her life along the way, which made it really cool. And it was really cool because you actually, on the audiobook, you get to hear these people. So I recommend the audiobook. It was, like I said, it was really good. But it surprised me that she is who she is, and she's exactly who she comes off to be. And I was really happy to hear that because I get nervous. You know, you get nervous. You're like, oh, am I going to like this person still? Am I going to want to watch them? Are they going to spoil something? Nah. She's who she is, and she's just a really neat person. Feels like I was like listening to a friend tell me a story, really, honestly. The next book that I read it on Kindle U, was My Lucky Charm by Courtney Walsh. We follow another one of the Hart sisters, and she is recovering from a breakup and a job loss all in the same time. This, and then a spontaneous, impulsive kiss on New Year's Eve puts her, in a sticky situation when she is forced to work with the grumpy Gus in her dream job. So not only has she got this situation, but now he's grumpy. It's a long story. Not wanting to repeat her past and keep it professional. But Hawk is not happy, that's our male main character, to be in Chicago because of different reasons, what you find out in the book. And they're both dealing with their past, and that's adding a level of difficulty, and they have to get past that. And I gave it 4 stars, and I didn't mention this last time because it's actually the second, and from My Phony Valentine, which I'll show up here. It had an ASL representation in the book, which I thought was really neat because I have never read a book with that in there, so I thought that was really cool. And I don't think I have, like I said, I haven't read a book with that before, so I thought that was really a neat little thing to it, and I look forward to reading more of her books. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a closed door, no spice, actually. I don't even say closed door because there was no spice. It was very PG, and really, really enjoyed that. Okay, now I remember. I couldn't remember when we started this video because I hadn't gotten this far what my 3-star is, and now I remember. The next book that I read was my Freida for the month, and it's called Do You Remember? This book was kind of a letdown as far as Freida. I was really shocked that I would ever, honestly, I was thinking I'll never find a book that I don't call 4-star with Freida McFadden, but no, this is not the one. This is definitely a 3-star, in my opinion. So I did see the first twist coming, which, you kind of always sometimes do with her. But this story follows Tess, who wakes up every day with no memory of the last 7 years. She does not recognize the man in her bed or even her house. She reads a letter that she has written to herself, and then she starts noticing certain things are not adding up. And this is really, honestly, to me, this was a dark version of 50 First Dates. Okay? This is not one of my favorites. I'm not going to go on anymore about it, but I did give it 3 stars. And I do look forward to reading more of hers, but now I can say I have a 3-star by Freida McFadden. It just was not, I just didn't really enjoy it. So, the next book, however, I did really enjoy. And it was None of This Is True by Lisa Joel. This is probably one of the best thrillers I've ever read. I actually listened to it on audio, which is really good. I would suggest, highly recommend doing that. This book, the way Lisa kept me believing that everything is not true. Like, she tells you none of this is true. But the way she writes it, you're like, I had to remind myself I was reading a thriller. Because I kept thinking, this is like a lit fiction or how is this a thriller? Because she was so good. It was so convincing. And it was a podcast documentary style, so that was really cool. And the story follows 2 women who randomly meet in a pub, and how it leads to them uncovering lies upon lies. Okay? And how one interaction in a bathroom can change the whole trajectory of your life. And yeah. And I never knew where it was going, is what I'm trying to say. But I was there for the ride, okay? Because I'm like, this is not a thriller. This is like pretty cut and dry, because she was so good at convincing you. And it makes me want to go back and take a star from Listen from the Lie. Like, when I listened to Listen from the Lie, this is what I wanted. Listen to the Lie. Okay? Remember, I did that one last month and I did not enjoy it. Well, it actually made me want to go back and take a star from that. But I won't. That's not really fair, right? Anyways, it was a similar concept, but done so much better, in my opinion. So, really enjoyed that. Definitely catch the audiobook. That was really good. Did not see the twist coming. It was really good. Okay, so the next book that I read was Forrest Gump by Winston Groom. Again, being worried that these books would tarnish the movies for me was definitely my biggest worry, right? But no. This book did not do that. In fact, I think the movie was better. The elements were conveyed so much better in the movie. It was basically the same story, but the way they did the movie flowed better than the book did, as far as I'm concerned. Forrest is himself that we love, but the book just did it better. Okay? And it was worth the read. I gave it 4 stars. And I was actually shocked. I thought it was going to ruin the movie. This is one of my favorite movies. So when I read it, and I was like, huh. Okay. I see what they did. And they just, on screen, it was so much better. And it was such a good story. And it had a lot of the very same elements. But like I said, just flowed better. So, in conclusion, this was a really good reading month for me. A lot of it was audiobook because, the one took me 2 weeks, but I'm not complaining. And I am 12 as of when I wrote my synopsis a couple weeks ago. I was 12 ahead. I think I'm still 12 ahead in my reading goal for the year. Not that it really matters. Just saying, if I wanted to take some time, I could. But I really think that if I keep up my pace, I'll probably be able to keep that or be even more ahead of my reading goal at the end of the year, due to the fact that I am walking. The weather is turning nicer, so I like to walk, so I've been listening to a lot more audiobooks lately. So unless something changes and I start listening to podcasts or music more or whatever, I don't see why that will change. But anyways, that's what it is. I'm really enjoying. I had a really great reading month, and like I said in my last video, about my April TBR, I'm still continuing that. And I also am be putting up a reading vlog. I'm gonna start another one in a minute. Probably the next you'll see if you watch, same shirt, because I'll be starting another reading vlog for some other books. But I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Write below any books that you have read that the books were better than the movie was better than the books, surprises, and I will see you in the next one. Okay? Alrighty. Bye-bye.